Hello and welcome to Both. Both is Good, a podcast where DMs, GMs, lore keepers, and anyone who wants to run tabletop games talk to each other about how they run their games. I'm Adam, and I've been running my game mostly by the book.
And I'm Siera, and I own the book. Is that
Yeah, that counts. And this is a nice opportunity for us to pick each other's brains about the various ways in which we run our D&D 5e games and to just hang out.
we're hanging out?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Disclaimer as always, we're just two people. We're DMs running our games. Uh Siera is running a podcast game, and that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
cool. But the way that we run our games doesn't have to be how you run your games. So feel free to run your games however you like. And don't ask.
Don't add us, man. I'm really hyper today. I just want to preface with that.
Well,
I didn't
that's
even
gonna
have
be
any
good.
coffee.
Nice. I also haven't had any caffeine. I
Whoa.
should definitely make that at some point. Or I'm gonna teeter off here at the end of the night.
Ah.
So
Well, how are your weeks in D&D, Adam?
they have been pretty good. I'm trying to think about it. I think my Friday group met after we recorded our last session, and they were dumbfounded by what to do with the hags that were just telling them everything that they were doing. Uh, a couple characters made some really cool choices. A deal was made with the hags, but that did not help at all with their current problem, but was role play important for the player, and that was really cool to see. They came up with a plan. Uh, they did some snooping, and then they got out of there successfully. So their first part of their plan was successful. They got away. They had a dinner with the hags. It was scary for them, and now tomorrow they will be trying to complete their plan, which is going to be kind of scary because the consequences are so high once you hit 14th level, right?
Yeah, it's like death.
Yeah. It's it's if they fail and they choose to survive after failing, the consequence is like so big.
Is this like
Uh,
end game for this game? Like end game?
no. This
Okay.
is one point. This is close to end game. This is
Hmm.
one group enacting their end game goal, chasing the other end game that is like the eventual end of the campaign.
Mm.
So it's big. Like it's a big moment that's been kind of harassing the party the entire game in small ways. But
Yeah.
yeah, that should be good. Friday game we've been doing. What have we been doing? Not Friday. I would just talked about Friday. Sunday game.
Sunday
We've been doing
game.
one shots. Yep.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, we just did a one shot. It was kind of weird. It ended up being a vaguely evil one shot where all of our characters were uh, like convinced or like semi mind controlled to follow the will of like a death god, and we did evil things, and that was
Yeah.
interesting. Definitely
Yeah.
not like I'm not an evil character player. I can't do it. Doesn't work for me. But it was fun nonetheless.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think. And then podcast.
Podcast game. Yeah.
Yeah, which was
Well,
good. It was fun. I'll kick it over to you to explain because I think you did some really cool stuff in
did
that
I?
podcast game. Yeah.
Okay. What was the farthest back? We didn't play the Saturday game.
Mhm.
We didn't I didn't play any. What is time? Um Okay, we haven't played the Saturday game. We're playing this Saturday. I keep thinking today is Friday, so I keep thinking we're
Mhm.
playing tomorrow, but we're not. It's 2 days away.
Yeah.
I'm ready for my bubble tea. Um, we played the podcast game. Yeah, that was really fun. I actually like at this point right now, since I am the post-production editor of our podcast and also the scheduler of when it goes live, I think I'm like 90% sure that this will not be spoilers. It's not going to be spoilers. What am I talking
Okay.
about?
Yeah.
Time is a weird soup. Um
Hmm.
yeah, we started the session after you all had found the crazy Medusa lady, and I started it with an above table conversation like we talk about all the time about how we were going to run burping the baby through the city of
Eating.
Florencia. Um because you shoved a woman in a bag of holding and there's only 10 minutes worth of air in that little pocket dimension per the magic description in the Wizards of the Coast descriptions of the rules. So
Hmm.
we ended up doing a variation on chase rules where we rolled for initiative and everyone took turns, and we skipped a few rounds for time's sake. Otherwise, it would have been like, I think Avis did the math, it would have been like 46 rounds to get to where you all were going. Um, but yeah, it was really fun and it was an adventure. It was an adventure. And that took the whole session, and you all made it to safety and had a little bit of downtime before taking a long rest. That was a really
Hmm.
good time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, running
Yeah.
that chase I think was done like very well. I think it
Mm.
was good to not do it because it wasn't round by round, right? And it also
Mhm.
wasn't minute by minute, but it was in like the consecutive chunks, like before we would have to struggle with the bag, right? Or when
Yeah.
something interesting happened, uh like Ziva's family reveal there.
Mhm.
So good. And then left off
Yeah.
on a cliffhanger again, which
Did
I'm
we?
interested in. Yeah. The crow just started talking.
Oh
And I was like,
yeah.
yep, and now we're gonna end.
The crow of consent.
The crow of the corvidad
The
of consent. I don't know if
corvid
this will
of
come.
consent. Oh, I love that. That's
Yeah.
so good. Yeah. That I'm just
Yeah.
having so much fun. That game and then the Wednesday game yesterday. I know we were hanging out in the Discord, just
Mhm.
gaming a bit together. Um, and I was talking about how I was a little nervous about it because I hadn't prepped it all, but it was a really good session. And apparently some of the moments were creepy. Some I play online, someone like closed their laptop and was like, "You didn't have to go weird with it." And I was just being the character.
Mhm.
And they finally got the big reveal of the big moral choice that is to be made. It's like the climax of the campaign, and it's all downhill from here to the end, like
Oh wow.
it's like, yeah, it's we're at the moment in the thriller movie where they decide to which direction to go to
Mhm.
survive, like it was really cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm glad that that turned out so well. And also kind of convenient. We're recording this the same week that our session prep video went up.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. I'm excited. Yeah,
I'm excited for yeah. For the podcast and for Saturday. Like all the games coming up are gonna be sweet.
so good.
It's really
But do
fun.
we play too much D&D, Adam?
Probably. you know. But you gotta get
Do we
experience somehow, right? How else by just grinding the game out, playing in like 10 different
some
tables.
someone asked us that the other day, and I just
Good.
want to say, like, in my defense,
Mhm.
the sessions that I run and are in right now are only about 3-hour sessions. It's not like they're like huge 5-hour, 8-hour sessions every week. And so if I like get down to like how much D&D I play in a week, it's normally only like 3 to 6 hours a week, which is
Yeah.
less than I play video games or read. So
Yeah. Not to undermine 3-hour sessions too. Like those
no, no,
are
no,
pretty
they're great.
meaty sessions
Hmm.
as well. Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't want to calculate my time per week.
what are we talking about today, Adam?
Well, today we're going to be talking about treasure, but I think we would be remiss if we didn't date this episode by saying it is also the day that expert classes came out for D&D 1 playtest,
Yeah.
which, maybe we'll playtest at some point.
Yeah, I put a little note in the Patreon section of our Discord asking folks if they would be down to play
Mhm.
test with me in a one shot. That would be open to anyone that would want to play that.
Yeah.
Of course, at this point, you'd be limited to playing a ranger or a rogue to truly play test.
Or a bard.
Or a bard, yeah.
Big
But
changes to bard.
so many. But yeah.
Yeah.
One
But
D&D.
but one D&D aside, we're talking about treasure,
Treasure.
which
Are you a loot goblin slash dragon?
so my game has been described by one of my players as Diablo, which you just get all of the treasure all of the time. Everything drops something. You're just looting everything. You're just getting so much loot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you
Mine's
would
not like
describe
that.
yours?
I did I I I don't really care about loot that much as a player unless it's useful for me or like makes sense to be dropped.
Mhm.
If I want something, I want to make enough money to buy it or like find it in a cool canonical way. I'm all about the story, Adam. You know this.
Yeah, which is why I'm surprised you don't like loot. Loot
Well,
is like such a good story device. Like maybe we should wait to get into it and just talk about what the book says first.
yeah, let's talk about what the book says. And I want to read a specific paragraph if that's okay.
Yeah.
Um
You want to
before
start? Should we put the pages in?
Yeah,
People
yeah,
are
yeah.
following along.
Yeah, do you have the I don't have the page. I'm on D&D Beyond. But there's an
Okay.
entire chapter in the DMG about treasure.
Yep. On
Chapter
page
7.
133.
133. And I wanted to just read the first paragraph of chapter 7 treasure because I
Mhm.
think it's beautiful. Um Adventurers strive for many things, including glory, knowledge, and justice. Many adventurers also seek something more tangible: fortune. Strands of golden chains, stacks of platinum coins, bejeweled crowns, enameled scepters, bolts of silk cloth, and powerful magic items all wait to be seized or unearthed by intrepid treasure seeking adventurers.
Mhm.
I can't read that without thinking of like every cartoon caricature of the character that like goes like automatically runs for the chest and just starts putting all of the jewelry on and like carrying as much as they can and like walk trying to walk out, Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You just like imagine Bilbo and Smog's treasure room,
Yep. Exactly.
grabbing everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is this whole chapter on treasure. And there's one section specifically that I want to talk about in this because this whole chapter has many great tables in it. It's got a lot of tables that's like here's individual treasure if they're just looting a single monster and they're asking if there's anything on it. Here's like magical items and what they should have. And there's specifically a section called treasure hoard, right? And on 133 there's the how to use the treasure hoard. And it talks about everything you could want in it. It's like here are what treasure hoards are. They could be in the lair of the creature. They could be a reward from the person who sent you there. If it's a dragon, there should be multiple of these hordes in there because dragons are specifically creatures that are collecting these items. But it's the last paragraph of it is the most important part to me, and it lends to any way you want to run treasure in your game. It says you can hand out as much or as little treasure as you want. Over the course of a typical campaign, a party finds treasure hoards amounting to 7 rolls on the 0 to 4 table, 18 rolls on the 5 to 10 table, 12 rolls on the 11 to 16 table, and 8 rolls on the 17 plus table, which fits pretty nicely into their Adventure Day system for XP. Because this amounts to essentially you're getting a treasure hoard every time you finish an Adventure Day, where you assign the hordes based on the highest CR of the creature that you kill in the Adventure Day. So if the highest thing you fight is between 0 and 4 CR, you give them the 0 through 4 table. If it's 5 through 10 CR, you do the 5 through 10 table, etc. So it's less about what the characters' levels are, and that those numbers are based on what the CR of the creatures are when you're mounting that treasure out. And that's generally what I think is the most important part of that section. Everything else, it's just talking about magic item rarities. It's giving you tables for art objects and gems so you can make your treasure hoards unique and different, have different flavors to them. It gives you a rundown on magic items, which is really important because a interesting part in 5th edition is that magic items are now destructible. I think in previous editions, unless this was just a colloquial house rule, which I've learned a lot of my D&D knowledge was from, its magic items used to not be able to be destroyed. Like they were
Hmm.
magically enhanced to be indestructible. But in 5e, it's very specifically stated in here that you can destroy magic items, has some rules for making identification more difficult. Uh, Talks a little bit about cursed items. There's a good section on spell scrolls and how to use them. And there's a cool variant about mixing potions, which is a lot of fun. That can make potion work more chaotic and interesting for the party.
Mhm.
And that is the by the rules treasure section. Give out
Yeah,
treasure
there's
as much as you want. Do you think?
yeah, there's a lot in this. I mean, it's an entire chapter. So really what we're going to do is come at it from how we operate and provide loot and hoards and treasures for our tables. I don't want to dive too far into like magic items or like coin. I really want to focus on like loot. How do we decide where the loot is, how much we give, how frequent that is, all of that. So, yeah, running the Diablo of games.
Mhm.
Every piece of loot coincide with the story?
I, I mean, it does in the sense that it's all part of the story, right? And if
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't fit in the story, like there's ways for it to be kind of hints at things that could come next. Or they
Mm,
work as me as these tokens that I could pull inspiration from if I'm missing something in my story or if I need to come up with a cool side quest or something while I'm trying to figure out how to get the party on the right track or onto a track, something like that.
yeah. Okay. Cool. How do you how do you decide what's in the chest or the hoard or on the person?
I roll on that random table.
Do you
I give the
really?
loot randomly, and it's something that I might have to change now because there's too much loot and too many other books, and there's not like a good succinct table that exists anymore to get those cool magic items that are in like Tasha's and Xanathar's into the hands of players in uh, somewhat chaotic fashion. And I do it randomly, but because of how much treasure you give, because I'm going by what they said in the book, their suggested amounts of each table. And based on those rolls that I've given, every single player I think has gotten the magic item that they wanted for their build randomly, just from
Mm.
table rolls, plus extra, you know?
Wow. Yeah, that's so cool. I have never. I get overwhelmed. We talked about this a little bit
Mhm.
when we talked about like encount like building cities and the chase rules and the tables there. I can get a little overwhelmed when in the DMG it's like here's roll on this table and then also roll on this magic item chart that's like subset appendix C chart 4. Like that can like really get me down a rabbit hole of confusion.
Oh.
So, um, the way I like to do it is well, when I was starting out DMing, honestly, I've always loved Pinterest as a DM. This is very
Mhm.
millennial of me to say, I think, but like I make mood boards for all my characters. I have a D&D board itself that I'm starting to like organize into like uh, character inspiration and magic items and like tables. And there's someone on there, I could look it up right now, but I'm not going to because it would take some time. Who creates custom creates rolling tables based on the creature that's been felled. So
Mhm.
like the first time I ever ran a campaign in Rickmonish, there was like a knoll table. And when they went to loot the knoll, they rolled on that table and got whatever they landed on. Um, and that was fine and they liked it and that was good. And then I just kind of like they kind of stopped looting things and then I kind of like got away from it. Um and more into like custom picking magic items for my world that fit for the NPC or the location which they're found or into the story like you were saying as like a story arc piece and can help motivate everyone to move forward and are useful to everyone. That's kind of my thoughts behind that. I also get very scared that the party is just going to be super OP. And I'm less scared of that now, but like as an intermediate DM, that was like a pretty scary thing that I would give too much loot, too many magic items, too much gold, and then they could just purchase all this stuff and just obliterate anything that I would calculate as an effective encounter for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want my PCs to be overpowered. Like that's I'm all in. I'm giving them all of the chips, so if they ever die, it's not my fault. Like I gave
Yeah.
them everything that they need. I'm gonna throw hard stuff at them, or I'm gonna throw appropriate stuff. I don't even push it too far, like above deadly. But
Mhm.
that's my philosophy in it. I'm like, you're gonna be overpowered, and you're gonna be super awesome by the end of this, and you're gonna feel immortal. But then there's gonna be that one creature who shows up, and you're gonna panic, and it's gonna be a bad time. You know.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's,
for
but
sure.
I could see the hesitation there because I think there's a lot of stories about tables who get too powerful and people who just do zany, wild things because technically they can, but like within the setting, it would make sense for them not to be able to.
Yeah. The other thing that I've found, and it makes me sad, is that I would give players, or even like in some like I use a random magic item generator sometimes. That's just
Mhm.
an online website. Um, and really cool stuff will pop up, and I'll give it to them from that, and it will just get never get used, or just like get tossed to the wayside, which obviously is a choice, but like Bobby Cato is the name of the avocado in the Wednesday game. And it's
Mhm.
truly just like me interjecting some randomly and like kind of not even at all anymore because they're just like this accessory. When if you look at the stat block for the avocado, they're so fucking OP.
Yeah. I mean, what
Yeah,
are you gonna do? Like you can
I
all like
know.
that's up to your players. You know, you can only give them so many cool things, but if they don't like they gotta use it.
Yeah.
Uh, another thing that I was doing in this game, and I'm still kind of doing, but I'm reeling it back a bit. Uh, I'm if they want to loot a magical creature they've slain, they will receive parts of that creature that are themselves innately magical that they
Mhm.
could then craft into something that they want to make
Oh, like the
in
lens of
downtime.
a cyclop eye that I have no idea what happened to?
Yeah. Oh, Morgus has it, I think.
Where? You just got a bag of holding.
He's just been carrying it.
Just like
It's
this
just
big,
on his backpack.
huge
Yeah.
turtle shell on this dwarven wizard's back.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he didn't say it weighed anything, so I mean, I have to imagine it's just kind of like a balloon. You just like it just floats gently around.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, kind of like
It's
that.
fine. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
It's I have one player who really committed to it, our ranger, and they have just finished crafting throughout been crafting it throughout the course of the entire campaign. They finished crafting their bow out of all of the materials that they found, which includes like
Mm,
bones of dragons and parts of manticores and
wow.
uh, like mithril and silver and just all of these materials that he's also used a bunch of the magic paint that you use to shape things the way you want to intricately like decorate his bow to make it both form
Mm,
fitting and like aesthetic to what he wants. And I completely custom homebrewed that reward
that's
because I
awesome.
think if my players want to create a magic item, like magic items can be destroyed, but they're extremely resilient. So that's just going to be a thing that persists in the world from there on out. And it depends on what they want the legacy of that magic item to
Mm,
be once the story's over.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, can Tilda find it later? Just
maybe.
kidding.
Be much later.
um, um, that's really cool. I I haven't done anything like that with like a magic item. But we're talking about treasure.
Hmm.
So I know that everyone in the podcast game likes treasure. So I decided to roll on the random tables for you all and give you a lovely hoard of treasure that happened to be like very spookily skewed. I don't understand why those things all came together, but they did. And I I want to talk a little bit about like if you're ever rolling on these tables or planning your loot or treasure for folks, if you buff those rolls, nerf those rolls, how do you decide how much gold versus magic items versus gems or art pieces, things like that?
So I mean, the table just tells you. Like
Mhm.
honestly, it says exactly how much like coinage you should get, exactly how much art objects you should get, and then what magic items you should roll for. So I leave it up to the dice because chaos is king, and chaos is the storytelling element of D&D. So why not let it tell the story of the loot as well? And then it's up to me
Yeah.
to take that loot that it gives and interpret it in a way that makes sense into the story, which hasn't been an issue yet. Knock on wood. I have to roll that up for tomorrow. Yeah. Assuming that they survive. Yeah. Are you talking about can I say what your loot hoard was for
Sure, yeah.
the
Mhm.
wait, were you talking Wednesday game or Thursday game?
Thursday game, yeah.
Thursday game, yeah. Where we got the pull of collapsing, the potion of climbing, the thunderwave spell scroll, the beat of refreshment, some walloping ammunition, the talking doll prosthetic limb, a potion of healing, ruby of the war mage, and unbreakable arrow.
Mhm.
What read spooky from that? I'm just curious.
A prosthetic hand and a talking doll.
I can see those two. Yeah. I guess in my mind, I always see the talking doll as like, just a pull string, like
Yeah, but the
not spooky
photo
doll.
in the it's spooky.
Oh,
It's spooky.
yeah.
I'll put
I'm
it right here.
yeah. I'm I'm playing it that it's not spooky to Godfrey.
Okay. I mean, probably not, honestly. He wears
Probably.
skull mask, so.
Yeah.
But for me, if I like am looking at that treasure hoard, like one, the party doesn't even seem to have like one. Again, this is where like this is me just like kind of venting a little bit as a DM, I
Mhm.
guess. Like I gave you this treasure hoard and then also gave you a bag of holding. And the only thing that anyone actively told me they took was the bag of holding. So I'm just guessing on whether or not you all grabbed everything from the room, put it in before you left, or whether you left it. Also don't know who has what, and no one seemed very excited about any of it, except for Ziba, who was like, "Ooh, a shiny rock."
Yeah.
So like, how do you get your players, or obviously we talked about how you can't force your players, and I don't want you to like think about this from like you as
Mhm.
my player standpoint, but how would you, what advice would you give DMs that are trying to motivate their players to be excited about loot or to use loot or to like interact with the world in that way of like getting loot and treasure?
Like, if I'm just speaking from the player's perspective in that game, it was kind of the circumstances around getting the loot that prevented us from being in on it, right? Like
Yeah.
we had just been put into a combat when we were aggressed on by people with weapons, and we just brutally killed them in an
Mhm.
underground home with
Mhm.
like no witnesses to know that we
Yep.
weren't there for ill intent. And
Yeah.
then we have the extra stress of thinking that the satyr might be an incarnate of a god
Mhm.
that we have the magic item for to make him not a god anymore, or at least that was an assumption that a lot of us had. And then as we're panicking in that room, we're told, "Oh yeah, there's also loot in this room." So it's like, are we going to come into this room, kill these people, put a person in a bag, and steal all their things? Like, is that the expectation for our previously like pretty good aligned group to do? And I think there was like contention there, right?
Mhm.
Because like this, like if this was loot that was given to us by the court after we had
Mm.
finished everything and we were sitting down and we were relaxing, I think then the conversation would have been like, oh, okay, who's taking what makes the most sense? Where in that moment when we're underground, we're like, we've got to go. Like this person is jabbering, they're unconscious, they're only going to be unconscious for so long. They've got snakes in their pockets. Like, what are we going to do about that?
Yeah.
You know? So I think part of
I
it's
hear
about the
that.
context of what where the loot is. Because like I always give loot at the resolution, right? When
Mm.
there's not something that they have to immediately go do afterwards. Like here is the reward. Look at it. Take some time with it, like play with it. And the other thing is a lot like all of those items that I listed that you gave, except for the bag of holding, are all common.
Mhm.
Which, common magic items are cool, but the thing about most common magic items is they don't do much. Like they're situational.
Mhm.
So like none of them integrate and are like innately pulled to a single player. So I think all of us seeing this list is like, uh who claims this? Like who should have this? I think we're all
Yeah.
just very polite people. And we don't want to be like, I'm gonna take these things. Because none of
Yeah.
us are playing like that character, right?
I would say though that the same thing happened in the Saturday group. Like we got this trove of treasure. I instantly knew what was useful for me, and then it took a few different pushes from our DM to be like, who's taking what? What are you doing with this in our Discord server in between sessions to understand how things were being divvied and how things were going. So I totally hear that. So giving
Yeah.
loot at a resolution point is better than like,
Mm.
so
In the middle.
even if you have planned like my party's going to go into this wizard's room and they can do anything they want, right? It's D&D. I
Mhm.
know that at the end of whatever they're going to do, whether they kill them, knock them out, throw them out the window, what have you, they're going to be able to open this drawer and find a few, like this little tiny hoard of magic in a pocket dimension that is a drawer for this wizard.
Mhm.
I can't stop my party from making the choice to knock this wizard unconscious and take them with him,
Mhm.
or for this uncertainty of like a ticking time bomb of like loot, but the loot still, it has to exist in this space because of what it is, right? So what would you do in that scenario?
So are you in this scenario? Are you saying that there's loot and the party's just ignoring it?
Well, the party just has to make a decision. Like they find this loot. It's
Mhm.
essentially for me like an equitable situation to like what happened to the party in the basement. Like
Yeah.
you could have killed this woman. You could have done something else with her. You could have taken all the time you needed. You knew that there was no one coming for you in the basement. It was this player imposed pressure.
Mhm.
So if this wizard is, their target and they're going to knock them unconscious instead of kill them, there's no other external pressures. There's no one trying to get into the room. There's no yelling and screaming outside. But they open this drawer and they find this hoard only to like take one thing and then ignore the rest. Is that still the best time if it makes canonical sense that the loot has to be in the drawer because it's owned by this wizard, right? Because then you couldn't give
Mhm.
it to them later on. You couldn't give it to them in the resolution point of like turning the wizard into the guard, and then the guard gives you all like these pieces. It would have to be like from a story standpoint tied to being found in the, the business room of this wizard.
I mean, I guess I wouldn't like constrict it to that place in the first place. Like I play it more loose with the improv in that way, right?
Yeah.
And so like I'll have the loot that is there that they're supposed to get, but I won't place it somewhere in the world, right?
Mm.
It'll be there and they'll have the opportunity to get it, but it'll be up to when the players are finally like sitting down and looking for it. Then I'll let them see it. I'll be like, "Oh yeah, you did find that. That's here." Especially if it's in like a horde room. But like the other examples of when I do that is I only really do that in like dragon encounters. Like that's the only place where they're going to
Mm.
go in and find a room full of treasure that they have to make a choice on in that moment. Otherwise, most of their loot has been from rewards from local municipalities that they've saved or otherwise been influential in, or from royals who they like saved the daughter of. People who
Mm.
would have those magic items and influence and wanted to reward them for the actions that they've done.
Yeah, for sure. I'm learning so much
Yeah.
as not a loot dragon.
Yeah. And also, if you are in that situation, you have it in the drawer and they take one thing and leave the rest, like that's on them. Like
That's
if they
how I
don't
feel too.
they don't want the loot, they don't have to take it. Like that's fine.
But me, as a little bit of a people pleaser down deep down in my heart, like to circle all the way, way, way
Mhm.
back, I would much rather. I tried it with a group and like I think it was fine and like you all do what you do with it. But like there's no one in the party who can use those wall bean arrows currently. There's
Mhm.
no one in the party who can use the unbreakable arrow currently.
Mhm.
So it's like I would much rather have a horde of things that I know everyone can use that is useful for every single person, maybe even curated to every single person,
Mhm.
um, available to the party as a gift from the DM, essentially, which is what treasure is, in a way,
Yeah.
rather than just rolling randomly.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's just in
Yeah,
my mind that takes more time that I don't
for
want
sure.
to spend. And it doesn't give me
It's so
that like
funny.
that rolling dice hit, of being like, "Ooh, what's it going to land on this
The
time? Let's see what the
dopamine
dice
is so
say.
exciting.
Are they going to get the
That's
boots
so
a
funny.
flying?
Yeah.
Are
Oh
they
my
going to get the
gosh.
carpet a flying and I'll be mad about it for the rest of the campaign?" Well, who knows?
That happened.
That happens. It did happen too.
Yeah.
So,
It's just so funny because it's interesting to see. This is again just a testament to like why I wanted us to be having this conversation because like it kind of flips the script on like I would much rather take the time to prepare
yeah.
something and you're like nah, let's just roll on the table.
Yeah.
So it's really
I'll,
cool.
a lot of it's also personal anecdote from me, right?
Mm.
Because the best moments I've always had in D&D is when we've gotten that magic item that none of us understand and we don't know why we have it. It's a bag of beans. What are we going to do with that? Then just having that moment, like 15 sessions later when we're fighting a beholder and its mouth's open, someone's like, "I throw the bean in there. I throw the bean in the mouth." And then it's like, oh yeah, let's put the beans in the mouth. Like, that's great. And then like chaos just ensues from the
Yeah,
beholder being filled with random miscellaneous things.
yeah. I mean,
Like,
I would think of Avanash's potions as a treasure hoard.
yeah, absolutely.
It's an
And
unknown one,
yeah, I
and
love
Godfrey's
those
really
potions.
the only one that's wanted to push the button.
Yes, because potions are like unilaterally positive. Like
Yeah.
there's not printed negative potions in the game. Like you could honestly custom create a potion that does terrible things. You know,
Mhm.
potion of poison being the one exception to that, right?
Yeah.
But like potions are very good and very overlooked. And
Mm.
I know that because I've been DMing and I know what those potions do now, and they're disgusting. If you're watching and you're a player and you have potions, use those potions. They're good.
I
Like
think the
you,
Wednesday group is scared because they weren't all good for them.
yeah.
I changed them
Mm,
for the podcast game. Someone may or may not have turned into a blubbering mouther, which
mhm.
actually I took that list of potions from Lum, who played Anchor early on in the campaign, from his campaign I played in with him because I thought they were fucking hilarious. And I also liked the negative consequences because it was funny in the same way that you're saying, like, it's funny. And it wasn't really negative. It was like you take a gaseous form for a minute and you're like,
Yeah.
well, okay, you just like took someone out of the combat, but as long as the combat is balanced, then that's okay. It just is this funny thing where you're just flying around
Mhm.
trying to fuck with people, but you can't because you're just a mist. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I will say the other commonality between this and the Saturday game is both of those lists are mostly common magic items. Like
Yes,
people get excited when they start being uncommon and greater because those start to be items that affect the way that the game is played and it affects what your character can do and it gives you more options. Even if it's something as innocuous as the ring of speak with animals, you
yeah.
know? It's like it
I
allows for cool things.
I also am. I think I'm a strange DM because I truly look at. I honestly don't think about magic items like that much. I kind of do as a
Mhm.
player, but not really. And I think the reason for that is because I offer you all gifts in the form of abilities,
Mhm.
like pretty cool, sometimes from external non Wizards of the Coast content or even homebrewed for your character stuff that you can do that could replace the benefits of some magic items. And so, again, like just making it personal to the character and the character story is really important for me. So, but again, DMs. The reason I put this random horde of shit, whether or not the players paid attention to it, is because I know that they all like treasure. And so even though I feel like it's an unnecessary part of the game, I am playing a game with other people and I need to make sure they're having fun and they like treasure. So we're putting treasure in the fucking game, right? Like it's that easy.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as it's not detrimental to you. Because, like, we don't
Oh
want
my
you to
god, it was
feel
so
bad.
hard to hit the click button,
Yeah, it's
Adams.
so hard
Generate the
for us
random list
to
of
ignore
magic
those
items.
magic items. Yeah. Because some people, it's tedious. It's tedious to be like, okay, well, I guess no one took those. I put all that time into it, and now no one's
No, it's
using the
okay.
items. Yeah, I love, by the way, the treasure suggestion of being abilities that think players get. That's super cool. I
Yeah.
love that. And that's it is mm,
Mhm.
sometimes instead of a treasure hoard, just give people like a permanent skill or feat
Yeah.
or oh,
Yeah.
really good.
The other thing that's applicable that I need to have a conversation with Avis about
Mm,
is D&D doesn't have a gift or mechanic system inherently around ancestral or generational weapons. So like Ziba will never want to give up her sword, right?
Mhm.
But it is a mundane long sword, great sword.
Yeah.
So like what can I gift to her in like in the form of like magic or treasure or abilities that allows that weapon to be imbued with magic or to do crazy shit because she now has these ancestral guardians and like family is such a big deal for her and like this whole thing. And so coming at it from that standpoint too, rather than just like here's a box
Mhm.
of stuff you found or here's the dagger off the rogue you killed, like yeah.
Yeah, I got you on that one. I think there is a supplement that is out that people have made for those ancestral weapons. I don't know it offhand, but the way I
Ooh.
do it in my game, I don't think anyone has inherently had. One player had this. We had a player named Gwen, who was a paladin, who was uh the really peaceful oath one, the one who didn't want to do any fighting whatsoever.
Mm, mhm.
And part of like the ceremony of taking her oath, uh, she used just her force of will to shatter a sword and to break it. And she used that shattered hilt of the sword as her weapon for the entire game. And it was an improvised weapon, did a d4 damage.
Mm.
But the way I did it is whenever I rolled on the magic item table randomly, if I got a +1 weapon, or if I found something of that nature, when they finished that arc and they like killed the creature, there was a magical effect that would happen that would enhance the shattered hilt. So one of the ways
Mm.
this generated is as she went on, whenever she used divine smite, the broken shattered pieces would reform into a blade just collected with water and it would become a magical longsword while she was smiting. And then
Wow.
as it continued onwards and it got to further and further, sadly that character left the campaign. They had other things come up in life and they couldn't play D&D as much. But it would eventually become a light blade. That was like the whole arc and plan. Like if they didn't leave when they did, they left on the arc where they basically purified their god's holy place that had been corrupted.
Mm.
That blade would have permanently been that weapon, but only when she wanted it to be. Otherwise, it would deal purely non-lethal damage and be just an implement of peace instead of war. And it's just the way of using that random roll and then using your imagination to create it to infuse those weapons to make them become these magical artifacts as they're being used by what will eventually become this legendary figure in your world, right?
Mhm.
Sorry, I went on a tangent there. I get really
No,
excited
that's
about that
beautiful.
because I
Yeah.
love that story so much about the person who comes in with a mundane item that is like near and dear to them. And through their exploits, it becomes magical. Like plunging a sword into like the breath into the neck of a red dragon. And when you pull it out, it's engulfed in flames and it's now a flame brand, you know? And that's
Mm.
so cool. And it's so like
Yeah.
thematic in the moment.
What you're
Oh,
describing is like the anti-Sauron hilt.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. The
I'm
shards of
sorry.
Narsil, but
I may have been watching Rings of Power lately.
that's fine. I still need to watch it.
Oh man, I'm not caught up. Anyway, yeah, I think I have heard people talk about it. It's on DM's Guild. I think it's something you can purchase there.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's exciting. Well, we
Yeah.
talked about hordes, we talked about loot, we talked about what the DMG says, we talked about what we like
Mhm.
to do. Should we bless and bane the DMG versus non-DMG rulings on treasure?
Listen, 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 pay. Can I just do blesses?
Of
I
course.
love blesses, but I don't like veins.
Go
I
for blesses.
I love the way you use rewards in the form of like magical abilities
Hmm.
and like features and pets. I think that is a really neat way of doing it that I haven't seen other DMs do, and I am overjoyed every time I look at my character sheet and I see those, like, shadow claws, even though my character is, like, struggling with whether or not they want to use them. It's still so cool. I think that is, like, it's almost better than treasure in a lot of ways, and it's like a good replacement for rolling on a treasure hoard.
Yeah.
It's
Thank
very
you.
personalized,
That's
and that
great
takes
to
a lot of
hear.
work. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say a bless for the table is that if you follow those rules, you'll know that your hoards and your looting will always be balanced based on, like you said, the XP, the adventure days, the normal systems laid out in the DMG. If you're following the DMG systems, it'll always be balanced. And if you're not following the DMG systems, it'll probably still be balanced because chances are you're playing an under or an overpowered campaign anyway.
Yeah,
um, yeah, I'd say that's a great bless for the DMG.
yeah,
I would say a bane to the DMG is something you brought up is that currently the DMG doesn't provide rolling tables that include all the supplementary texts that have come out since it was published.
yep.
Um, the last issue date, I believe, was 2014, right? It was the player
Mhm.
handbook and the DMG in 2014.
Yeah. I think that's gonna be one of the big benefits of D&D 1 once it comes out, 'cause I imagine DMG is going to have a magic item section that is all of their updated magic items.
Yeah.
But absolutely, hard agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Another bless to not using the random tables, I would say, is like story tie-in. Like I guess you could use the random tables and like then use that as inspiration to tie into your story, but it might be easier to like just go looking for something specific if you need something specific for a certain person or NPC or monster or creature that you want them to have and allow your players to have access to from that place. And D&D Beyond does a great job of just like just searching. Like I can just search like forest scrolls or something, and it's right
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
But I also own all my content in D&D Beyond. So if you're not one of those people, I understand that maybe that's not an applicable rule for you.
Mhm. I like the random tables too. Like, I've been harping on it the whole time. I think my blesses are there. So I think it is a lot of fun to play with items that your players maybe didn't think would be good. And to see them grow a new attachment to something that they've never maybe even seen in the DMG. Like there's so many
Yeah.
cool magic items in there that are super niche. And if you're only curating to what players want or to what works with your campaign, sometimes you'll miss out on some of those weird, cool ones that become like the cornerstones of like an identity in your game.
Oh yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Say hi to Nolan.
Hi, Nolan.
Well, we've blessed, we've banned, we've talked loot, we
Mhm.
talked our weeks in D&D.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Is that it?
Mhm. Oh, if we did both,
If we did both?
if we fused your version of loot with my version of loot, what would that look like? And would that be feasible for a campaign world?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be the thing that I touched on. It would be like take the tables, roll on the
Mhm.
tables,
Yep.
dissect that,
Yeah.
and figure out how to tie it into your story and what is useful for your characters. And if anything isn't useful for your party makeup, say it's a bard item, but there's no bards in your party, just
Mhm.
re-roll that one.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I haven't said it in this episode, but I do that when I roll. If I roll
Mm-hmm.
something that's completely useless, I re-roll it. Like if it's used
Mm-hmm.
by something that they can't attune to, new item.
That's a bane to
Yeah.
the random magic generator that I use because I can't like hold things. If I re-roll it, it
Mm,
re-rolls everything.
yeah. I luckily use pencil and paper, so I'm able to just erase it, and it works super well. But
Oh yeah.
I think adding to that, a way that we could blend our styles too is if we do roll that item and it's like a good item, but it's an attunement that no one else can use. It's when we scratch it out and we're like, let's work on a boon that could be given to a character instead. Like, what's
Mm.
a cool story element that could happen here? Or you don't even plan the element. You're like, I'm going to wait for a moment in this combat. And based on what that moment is and the themes around it, I'm going to give that player something cool for the rest of the game that's going to be custom.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing you could do is you could take the recommended loot amounts from the DMG, maybe cut those down a little bit, and then also offer the advanced features, abilities, ancestral weapon perks, those other things that we talked about that aren't included in the DMG.
Mhm.
Because essentially everyone in Utopia will be a lock multi-class at some point, I guess.
Yeah.
They will be given gifts from folks for
Yeah.
their humble heroism. Yeah. Well, get on the Discord, join us. We're there all the time. Find us on the socials. Like, follow, subscribe, tell your friends. Use the bird app, use the clock app,
Yeah.
use the photo app, use the nose app. I don't know what that is.
Just use your mouth. Just talk to your friends.
Take what you want, leave the rest, and don't add us. And that's it.
Unless you're saying nice things or posting specifically gifs of angry mobs with pitchforks.
Angry mobs
You
with
could add us with
pitchforks
those. Mhm.
are allowed. That's it.
Yeah.
Both is good.
It's good. Woo! Outro. It's always the best. We got good outros. Down to a science. Why are we still recording?